Chapter 17, Science on Trial. The small hearing room was packed with media representatives in every chair and crowded into standing room only against the back walls. Hardwood panel walls reflected a cacophony of whispered conversations all around, moving to a dissonant crescendo. Finally, a Senate aide called the meeting to order. All rise. Senator Paul Field, Commerce Committee Chair, Senator Winona Ressler, and Senator Buck Broomer have entered the chamber. Like lapsed Catholics, Bill and Tom rose along with everyone else and waited to be seated along with everyone else. When the room was finally settled, Senator Field gavelled the hearing to order. The committee is now prepared to hear a summary testimony from Dr. John Cooperson, the director of the National Institutes of Health. The director cleared his voice and began to read a prepared statement. Senator Field and ranking subcommittee members, Senator Broomer and Senator Ressler, I thank you for this opportunity to testify regarding the research priorities of the National Institutes of Health Foundation. For over 75 years, the NIH has been charged with a mission to uncover new knowledge that will lead to better health for all humanity, helping lead the way towards important research discoveries that improve people's health and save lives. NIH funding supports research into causes, treatments, and cures for common and rare diseases. This key role has been crucial to the strength of America, her quality of life, and now we understand her national security. It is hard to imagine a more relevant subject than what comes before us today. The biological research priorities that are determined today will set the course for medical research in America for the next 25 years. The consensus of the scientific community is now focused on the wonderful promise offered by stem cell therapy, which may now allow replacement of dead cells in damaged tissue and could someday cure what are now incurable genetic disorders. This is the reason that the entire scientific community has hailed the president's recent proposal to remove all unreasonable federal funding restrictions for this vital research. Dr. Cooperson, said Senator Field, looking at his notes, in April of last year, scientists announced a new treatment for muscular dystrophy in mice using adult stem cells. Days after, scientists successfully treated type 1 diabetes with adult stem cells, and 93% of the patients stopped taking insulin because their bodies now produce it naturally. Finally, in November, 2 studies showed that adult skin cells in humans could be reprogrammed to function like embryonic stem cells. This breakthrough technique has all the promise you just cited, but none of the ethical problems associated with embryonic tissue research. To date, many treatments have been developed using adult stem cells, yet not one from embryonic stem cells. Why then does the president insist on funding embryonic stem cell research? Dr. Cooperson began with a defensive tone. These are very important advancements, but we can't ignore the fact that scientists of other nations are making steady progress in this field with the aid of their governments. Senator Field came back. For instance, Dr. Hwang in South Korea, before it was discovered that he faked key research results, wasn't he considered the world leader in embryonic stem cell research? Now, that was an unfortunate case that does not represent the vast majority of ethical scientific institutions around the world. In fact, many religious leaders and bioethicists are now weighing in on this matter in favor of compassion and have cast their support behind the president's proposal. Are you referring to the piece by Dr. Simon Kruner in yesterday's New York Times? Isn't he the one who claims that babies are not persons until they're 3 months old? Well, some would say that Dr. Kruner's position has been misrepresented. Be that as it may, the vast majority of scientists have rallied behind the president's proposal. With that, Senator Ressler broke in. Senator Field, I do believe you are trying to make Dr. Cooperson responsible for every one of the many bioethicists who've joined the community on this matter. Just asking questions for which I don't seem to be getting straight answers. The honest truth is that I'm still trying to form my own opinion, but it must be based on good information, not science rallies. The mood in the room was increasingly nervous. Senator Field returned. That said, I need to ask about the NIH plans for funding the progress of the research team at the University of Alabama under the direction of Dr. William Elder, along with a team at Johns Hopkins. Dr. Cooperson began reading from his notes. Senator Field, the NIH is well aware of Dr. Elder's work and is still under consideration. However, we feel that it's premature to make any recommendation concerning plans for funding. Dr. Cooperson, I'm well aware that the NIH has Dr. Elder's work under consideration. In fact, my sources tell me that there's been a move to significantly reduce funding for all block grants at the University of Alabama, and this contingent on UA support for Dr. Elder's research. Can you explain this situation to me? An icy chill moved over Bill and Tom as they were already riveted to the unfolding testimony. Tom whispered to Bill, "This is what he was trying to warn us about." Senator Field, please let me assure you that the NIH is committed to a balanced review of any significant claim for a scientific advancement, and even now a select committee of key scientists is preparing a summary report. We also have kept the President's plan to fully fund stem cell research in view. The NIH must carefully balance its priorities. Indeed. And when will this report be ready? Well, such an effort will take some time, something on the order of 6 months. Oh yes, just in time for my retirement. Senator Ressler quickly leaned into the microphone. Dr. Cooperson, is it true that the NIH is working with the National Academy of Sciences related to concerns about the methodological approach of the UA research team? Well, not quite. Actually, the administration of the University of Alabama has raised concerns about possible violations of university policy concerning the timing and approval process for the results of all major research projects. The NAS is simply consulting on these matters. One could see visibly the shock to Bill as he did a double take and then turned to Tom with an expression of distress. And is the UA prepared to take action on these concerns? The university administration has called in an NAS consultant who has worked with the NIH in the past. His expertise is in the philosophy of science and analysis of research methodologies. Senator Field pulled his microphone briskly toward him to let go some of the frustration. I would very much appreciate it if you would cut through the double talk. Is there some legitimate concern with the quality of Dr. Elder's research, or are you simply trying to discredit the man? Senator Broomer finally made his presence known at the proceedings. Senator Field, Senator Ressler and I have arranged to hear testimony from the consultant just mentioned, to hear about the research standards developed by the NAS and how these relate to the research team at the University of Alabama. Very well. Perhaps he will address my questions directly. With that, Senator Broomer motioned to an aide at the door. Please call Dr. Michael Richardson to enter the hearing room. Bill's thoughts were in a spin. He wondered if he'd even shared with Tom about his chance encounter on the flight with Michael Richardson, and now he's going to be giving testimony concerning his research? But how could this be a coincidence? Tom looked at Bill's strained expression, wondering what was going on. Are you okay, Bill? I will explain later, he whispered. Senator Field looked down at his notes and began with a restored measure of reserve. Now, Dr. Richardson, can you explain the concerns about the research of the team under direction of Dr. Elder at the University of Alabama? Dr. Richardson looked over to Bill and then back, never to look again. Yes, the concerns are related to violations of standard policies now in place at the majority of public universities in the United States and indeed the world. That coupled with questions about non-scientific research methodologies. Please do go on. Senator Field's patience was already running thin. Dr. Richardson began. Now first to the point about standard policies at public universities. In the press conference where the results of the research were briefed to the media, Dr. Elder attempted to advance his own religious conviction about these matters in a way that is explicitly disallowed by standard written policy that is now in place at the University of Alabama. You seem to be saying that the university has a policy that professors can't have religious convictions. What about academic freedom and freedom of speech? Well, these concerns come up all the time, so in the interest of maintaining academic excellence in public universities, the NAS has drafted a set of policies that ensure that individuals don't usurp the good reputation of their respective institutions. So the answer is yes. The NAS is trying to force out anyone who attempts to maintain their religious convictions while working at a public university. Senator Field, these policies have come before the courts in a number of cases. In an opinion by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, the court held that public university professors have no constitutional right of academic freedom and that their right of free speech in the lecture hall is subject to approval by the university administration. In an appeal to the Supreme Court, the decision was upheld 5-4. Senator Field now addressed the room. How in the world has it come to this when American universities are now in the business of student indoctrination? It appears to me that the NAS and the NIH have collaborated to pressure the UA administration to accept a deal for continued funding at the expense of one of its leading researchers. Dr. Richardson looked up with satisfaction. The fact is that the administration of the University of Alabama has tried to work with Dr. Elder and his associates in this case and another in the recent past. Go on. The University of Alabama was actually forced to address the teaching methods of Dr. Elder in the courts for a similar case. Now Tom looked at Bill with dismay. Senator Field's eyes narrowed. I see. And I suppose you have some withering testimony to share with us? Well, you can decide for yourself. In a previous case of policy misconduct at the University of Alabama involving Dr. Tom Johnson, the court upheld a university demand that he not mention his religious beliefs in class. In that case, Dr. Elder gave public testimony about the acceptability of Dr. Johnson, offering a study unit titled Evidence of God in Human Biology. The court ordered Dr. Johnson, and by extension Dr. Elder, to stop this practice immediately. Senator Field was visibly perturbed. So it appears that you have successfully banished God from the public university. As stated before, a key concern raised by the University of Alabama relates to methodological naturalism. The university has a policy that science is the pursuit of natural cause and effect. An assumption that God did it does not lead to scientific conclusions. Senator Field paused. Since we will soon be hearing testimony from Dr. Elder, I will wait till then for further inquiry on this matter, but such policies are clearly founded on an anti-religious bias. Senators Broomer and Ressler, do you have a question for your witness? Senator Ressler looked over with apparent satisfaction. I would say your questions covered things pretty well. Senator Broomer simply said no. Without further hesitation, Senator Field said, I move that we take a 5-minute break. He struck the gavel. A Senate aide motioned to Bill and Tom to exit and led them to the conference room.